Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you are doing well. And I'm going to come through and rank from worst to best all of the 2021 XXL freshman freestyles that just dropped, that came out over this past week. Pretty excited to dig into these with you. I saw the cover and I was a little dumbstruck by the cover because there were some names on it that honestly have been growing momentum in the underground and beyond over the last year that I thought would be much more worthy of a new XXL freshman cover. But honestly, I just kind of sat with it, and I'm happy I did kind of wait because honestly, I don't think the ciphers this year were as much of a hot mess as they've been for the past couple of years. Now, that's not to say that there aren't issues. Some of the freestyles in this list, as I will say, were not all that great. And I have no idea who made the executive decision to make it seem like they're all rapping in a spaceship and have like spaceship droning noise sound effects going on in the background. I thought it was a horrible decision. Now, it didn't take away from anybody's performances or abilities here, but my God, I mean, I guess the cover's cute, but the space sound effects I feel like we could have done without generally, but whatever. Now the first one, the worst one, as is kind of customary like every year, somebody seems to kind of skip out, and that's where we have Ian Dior. I don't know if I'm clueless here or if I'm missing something. I mean, it seems like, we got his top albums, his top rappers, then it went straight into the trailer for the ciphers, and we did not get a freestyle from Mr. Ian. So I'm going to have to say worst here because you, as I have said before, you miss all the shots you don't take. The guy seems like a pretty talented vocalist, as talented as anybody else who's in this list thus far. I don't know why he couldn't do a freestyle, but he did not. And that's why he is at the bottom here. After that, the worst of the ones that actually happened, I'd have to say Pooh Shiesty. He seemed like he was more set on flexing than actually freestyling, and he was flexing pretty much everything except his actual lyrics and his actual flow. No charisma, nothing in terms of a unique vocal style or delivery. I just didn't really get much out of anything that he did here. Now, that's not to say that the guy can't or doesn't make good music, but does he have the talent set or the will to sort of drive himself in such a way where he impresses in a freestyle format? I guess that kind of remains to be seen, at least in this instance. So he didn't really bring anything to the table in this freestyle, and that is why he's at the bottom. It just kind of seemed like he wasn't trying. From there, we have 42 Doug, who hit me with a similar vibe as Pooh Shiesty. I will say he came with a very consistent flow, but outside of that, I feel like really no charisma, nothing in terms of fire on the delivery end. The bars, for the most part, melted together in a way that kind of reminded me of Kodak Black, but less coherent, far less coherent and less engaging. I've heard the guy on some tracks that I really enjoy, but did he do much for me in this freestyle? Not really. Now, I will say, past this point, everybody's freestyle was fairly decent and had likable qualities. So again, to sort of talk about this round of freestyles in comparison with the freestyles the past couple of years, I feel like this one was more consistent. There wasn't anything so far off that it was the most trash thing I've ever heard. Yeah, as I've said so far, there were a couple of freestyles that let me down, disappointed me, wasn't that crazy about them. But there wasn't anything that was just so awful it was offensively bad. And Coi Leray, I thought, with her very bright, very chirpy voice and swagger, came through strong in the first half, but then she sort of switched up to this squeaky voiced, almost Cardi-esque flow that I feel didn't really do much for her in the second half. And from there, it really trailed off. With Coi Leray, I think we got a great start. And I think, proof of what has made her such a charismatic character over the past year on numerous singles and features. It's really only one half of this freestyle that really did it for me. And the second half, the latter half, not quite as much. Moving on from there, Rubi Rose, who I think was a bit more consistent with it, but failed to establish a really strong flow across her performance here, to the point where much of what she was doing here, while it did have presence and it did have aggression and it did bring a massive amount of confidence, and she did have a few bars here and there, it felt more like a rant than it did, you know, like a well-flowing freestyle, which sometimes these things can certainly turn into and be delivered well as, but in Rubi Rose's case, I didn't quite feel like that was so. Next, we have Lakia, who I thought brought a stronger flow than the past two, but I didn't think she brought really a strong sense of like distinct style to her performance here. I loved what she, again, did rhythmically, and I thought she was pretty aggressive, in your face, had a great energy. A couple of bars here and there felt relatively hard, but outside of that, I wasn't really stunned. It was a consistent performance, but it wasn't, mind-blowing or above and beyond. Then we have DGG, who I thought brought a very short and sweet performance. A lot of triplet flows. He was very animated. He was easily one of the highest energy performers of the bunch. Again, it's really kind of the brevity of his performance here that I think shot it in the foot. As soon as it like really started to get to the point where, whoa, you know, he could really go the distance and like really come out with one of the best performances here, he came out with a little refrain and then just like trailed off immediately. Maybe he didn't want to overextend himself. Maybe he didn't want to give away too much right out of the gate. Maybe he wanted to just keep it as simple as he possibly could. But there are freestyles in this bunch that are more ambitious, that really do kind of go the distance. And I feel like, they deserve placement above this one. Certainly he's an artist that, based off of this freestyle, I'll be looking forward to hearing what he can pull off in the ciphers when things get a little more competitive, because even on his own, he seemed to, have that fighting spirit that that I feel like you should have when you're approaching, these freestyles. Going on from there, we have TikTok's own Flo Milli, who performed as well as I had anticipated for the most part. Like, a lot of charisma, standout vocals. She had some hilarious bars. I mean, pretty much everything that makes her entertaining in, those short clips where you're hearing her on various TikToks and everything, made her entertaining in this freestyle format. If any artist was going to go into this guaranteed to perform at least pretty well, it's Flo Milli, because we already know that she could work under pressure, that she works well, and she conveys herself well in short chunks of time. Yes, again, she came to the mic with character, with some funny and standout bars, with flow, with a great energy. And yeah, that's why Flo Milli placed pretty deeply into the upper half of this list. I dug her performance quite a bit. Then after that, we have Morray, who was an artist that going into this I was not super familiar with, but he really did go the distance in his freestyle and had some amazing little vocal lines, really digging deep into his lower register. Wasn't really rapping as much as he was singing in this one, but we've seen, our fair share of singers in the XXL freshman freestyles over the years recently. So, I mean, what he's doing here is pretty well established and respected. And I thought his performance was really great. I thought he was putting together some good runs, and he just seemed to be flowing like a machine, man. It seemed like he could have gone on for another 2 to 3 minutes with absolutely no stopping. He just like really kind of mesmerized me in the moment he created on this freestyle. So generally very impressed with what Morray did here, and looking forward to seeing what he ends up doing in the ciphers. All right, moving on from here, we have Blast, who another artist I wasn't super familiar with going into this, but came out incredibly impressed by. And he was one of the performers here that, when he was doing what he was doing, it came off the most effortless, like it was very low key, and he wasn't like trying to, overdo it on the energy or anything like that. But when you actually dig into what he was saying, some of the standout bars that he had, and combine that with the fact that he had some subtle flow switch-ups across his performance as well, I think he was one of the coldest and one of the smartest of the bunch, hands down. I was incredibly impressed, and I actually saw that he had some great picks for his, top albums selection. So he's somebody who I'm going to dig into a little more deeply after this, because he seemed to have, really like the total package. Yeah, shout out to Blast. I was really impressed with what he brought to the table here. And finally, I had Tusi as my number one, mostly because I thought his performance here was the most compelling. It flowed and almost like vibed like a piece of slam poetry. What he said had an incredible amount of focus from beginning to end and was really kind of diving into his personal story, his mother, in a way that was really just like sharp, moving, and quite detailed. I really liked what he brought to the table here. His freestyle felt more like a beautiful internal motivational monologue in a way, and it felt less like a freestyle and more like you were locked in a moment of internal thought with him. That was again quite compelling and beautiful. At least my favorite for this batch. Make sure to hit me down in the comments and let me know what your favorites were. I will hit you with my thoughts on these ciphers when they are out. And once more, let me know down in the comments what you guys thought in terms of who performed well, who didn't. And I will see you in the next one. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, XXL, freshman, forever.